Reporting.
Get on the fucking ground now! Drop that fucking gun!
Stop moving!
Stop moving!
Put your hands out to your side! Put your hands up!
3 boys, 3 nights, 3 American cities. Each of them was running, not toward danger, but away from it. Each of them was doing what anyone would do in that moment. And each of them was shot for it. Their names were Emeshion Wilkins, 17 years old, in St. Louis. Kanoa Wilson, 16, in San Diego. And Jasmer Tucker, 15, in Akron, Ohio, on a Thanksgiving night, walking to his older brother's house. Emeshion had no prior criminal history. He had just turned 17 2 weeks before he died. Kanoa was an only child who loved the ocean and the beach. Jasmer played basketball and dreamed of college. They were not headlines yet. They were still just boys. This is not just a story about 3 police shootings. It is a story about what it means to run while black in America, about the footage that was meant to show the truth and what happened when it did, and about a weapon that never fired but was made to justify everything. What follows is not an argument. It is a record, and records like this do not close. They compound. The case of Emeshion Wilkins begins not with a gun, but with a car. A stolen silver Mazda CX-5, moving at 10 miles an hour through the streets of the Ville neighborhood in St. Louis. That is where the law ended and the chase began. It is important to understand how slowly this all started, because the death that followed took only 20 seconds. Emeshion was not the driver. He was not the primary suspect. He was a 17-year-old who ran when police approached the vehicle. He ran. That is the entirety of what he did. And in the United States of America, in the year 2024, that was enough to cost him his life. Emeshion Wilkins had turned 17 just 2 weeks before this night. He had no criminal history, not a single prior charge, not a single arrest. He was a teenager in a neighborhood that police already treated as a high-alert zone. When the officers pursued him on foot through the dark, he ran the way anyone outnumbered and frightened would run. He ran because he was afraid. He ran because he was 17. He ran because flight is a biological instruction, not a criminal one. That run lasted no more than 20 seconds. It was the last 20 seconds of his life. And in the fraction of time it took for Officer Brett Carlson to make a decision, a boy who had never harmed anyone was shot in the back of the head.
Reporting.
Get on the fucking ground now! Drop that fucking gun! Drop that fucking gun!
That officer believed Emeshion had a gun. He said so out loud. Twice. Those 2 commands, drop the gun, became the foundation of every justification that followed. The problem is that the footage does not show a gun. It shows a boy running. It shows his back. It shows the direction he was moving, away from the officers.
Drop that fucking gun!
And within seconds of those words, one of 4 bullets struck Emeshion Wilkins in the back of the head. He never turned around. He never raised his arms. He never stopped running long enough to pose any kind of threat. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department released a public statement within hours of the shooting. It said, an armed suspect turned and pointed a gun at officers. 7 lines. That is all. But the body cam footage tells a different story. At no point does Emeshion turn to face the officers. At no point does a gun appear in his hand. What does appear, later in the footage, is the officer standing over Emeshion's body, saying, the gun's right here.
Location.
Whittier and that, yeah,
Gun's right fucking here.
And then nothing. No gun is visible on camera. No officer picks one up. The footage was withheld from the public for nearly 2 years. It was not released until 2026, not by the department voluntarily, but under sustained legal pressure. When it finally appeared, it did not confirm the official account. It directly contradicted it. Police later determined that a firearm was found in Emeshion's pocket after he was shot, but his family's attorney commissioned an independent forensic analysis. That analysis found the weapon had been disassembled. It could not fire. It had no functional mechanism for discharging a round. It was, by any technical definition, not a weapon, it was parts. A gun that could not shoot was presented to the world as the reason a bullet could. That is not a footnote in this case. That is the entire architecture of the justification. Remove the gun, and you are left with an unarmed teenager shot in the back of the head while running away. Which is, in fact, what happened. Emeshion Wilkins is simultaneously described as an armed threat and a boy with no criminal history. He is simultaneously fleeing and attacking. He is simultaneously in possession of a weapon and in possession of something that cannot be a weapon. The official account requires the viewer to hold all of these contradictions at once and to resolve them in the officer's favor. The body cam footage, buried for 2 years, asks the viewer to look instead. These contradictions do not exist because the situation was complicated. They exist because the narrative was constructed after the fact to fit a conclusion that had already been reached the moment the trigger was pulled.
This young man posed no threat, and that bullet went through the back of his skull.
In St. Louis, a boy with a broken gun was shot in the back of the head while running from police. Nearly 2,000 miles away, in San Diego, a boy with a holstered gun was shot in the back while running towards safety. Different city, different officer, identical outcome.
2040. I got shots fired. Again, I got shots fired over at Santa Fe Depot.
The case of Kanoa Wilson does not begin with a police officer. It begins with a different gun, one fired by another 16-year-old boy on a transit platform at the Santa Fe Depot in downtown San Diego. There was already shooting happening. Kanoa Wilson was the one being shot at. He ran, not toward the gunfire, not toward a confrontation. He ran in the direction of safety, the way any living person would. In doing so, he ran into the path of Officer Daniel Gold, a police officer on the force for fewer than 2 years. What followed took 1 second. In that 1 second, without a word of warning, without a command, without a single syllable directed at Kanoa Wilson, Officer Gold fired twice. Both bullets struck Kanoa in the back.
San Diego Police!
Kanoa Wilson was 3 months short of his 17th birthday. He was an only child. He had been targeted by gang members on multiple occasions, beaten badly enough to be hospitalized. He carried a gun because the streets he moved through had already tried to kill him once. He was not a predator. He was a survivor, navigating a world that had already shown him what happened to boys who were unprepared. On the afternoon of January 28, 2025, he was not the aggressor. He was the target. And when he ran past Officer Daniel Gold, that distinction did not save him. The officer did not know his name, did not know his history, and did not issue a single warning before firing.
This was a white cop who killed a black kid. And he was running from danger towards safety, and safety killed him.
In this case, the footage was not suppressed. It was released relatively quickly, but what the footage shows is exactly what the family said happened. Kanoa is running past the officer. He is not turning. He is not drawing a weapon. He is not slowing down. He is moving, in full flight, and the officer fires before speaking. There is no verbal command on the recording. There is no announcement of police presence. There is a boy running, and then there are 2 shots, and then there is a boy on the ground. The camera did its job. The footage is clear. The question that the city of San Diego has never been forced to answer is why doing its job was not enough to result in a single criminal charge against the officer who fired.
Gun. Hey, easy with the gun, easy with the gun.
When police released the footage, they made sure to note that Kanoa Wilson had a firearm underneath his clothing, near his right thigh. His attorney addressed this directly, and the facts are not contested. The gun was holstered. It was never drawn. The safety was on. There is evidence suggesting the magazine held no ammunition. Kanoa had it because he had been beaten and hospitalized by gang members on more than one occasion. He carried it to survive, not to threaten. But the moment police named the gun, the narrative shifted permanently. The boy running for safety became the boy with a weapon. And the weapon he never reached for. The weapon he had no intention of using, and no physical opportunity to use in the 1 second the officer gave him, did all the legal and moral work that the justice system required it to do. The city of San Diego paid $30 million to the Wilson family, the largest police misconduct settlement in United States history, surpassing even the payment made to the family of George Floyd. $30 million is not an accident payment. $30 million is an acknowledgement. It is the city's legal admission that something went catastrophically wrong on that platform. And yet Officer Daniel Gold remains employed by the San Diego Police Department. He has not been charged. He has not been tried. He has not been dismissed. The city paid with one hand and kept the officer with the other. Accountability and employment, it turns out, are not incompatible. They are simply applied selectively. In San Diego, a settlement was reached before a criminal investigation concluded. The city moved fast. The officer stayed on. In Akron, Ohio, the city moved differently. There, a 15-year-old boy was shot on Thanksgiving night, and when the cameras finally turned on, the critical moment had already passed. Jasmer Tucker was 15 years old. He was a twin. He played basketball, and his coaches described him as one of the most naturally gifted players they had ever seen on a youth court. Not just talented, but kind. Kind to younger players. Kind in the way that coaches remember long after the season ends. On the night of November 28, 2024, Thanksgiving, Jasmer had dinner with his family. Then he left to walk to his older brother's house. It was the kind of ordinary movement that happens 1,000 times a night in every American city. He was not running. He was not fleeing. He was walking. He was 15. He was shot by Akron police officer Devon Fields at 11 p.m. He was found on the ground in the Sherbandy Hill neighborhood with a handgun zipped inside his coat pocket. The pocket was closed. The gun was never drawn. What you are watching is the footage that Akron police released to the public. Watch it carefully. Pay attention not to what it shows, but to what it does not show. The reason is not equipment failure. The officers did not activate their body cams when they got out of their vehicle. The cameras were triggered remotely by the emergency lights of a passing patrol cruiser. By then, the most important moment in the entire encounter was already gone. Across these 3 cases, the footage has played 3 different roles. In the case of Emeshion Wilkins, the footage contradicted the official story and was buried for 2 years to prevent that contradiction from becoming public. In the case of Kanoa Wilson, the footage confirmed exactly what the family said, and the city paid $30 million because the footage was undeniable. But in the case of Jasmer Tucker, the footage does not exist. The most important seconds of that encounter. The moment an officers Devon Fields and his partner were nearby in their cruiser, finishing paperwork on a previous call, when they heard gunshots just after 11 at night. They got out of their car and moved toward the sound. What happened in the moments that followed has no camera record. Officer Fields fired his rifle. Jasmer Tucker was struck. He did not survive. What the footage shows is not the encounter. It shows Jasmer Tucker already on the ground.
Put your hands
Block
out to
southbound
your
and
side.
hands out to your
Northbound
side.
traffic. Push out to the right. Nope. On me. Push out to the right. He was reaching right with his right hand.
Officer Devon Fields stated that he saw Jasmer reach with his right hand toward what the officer believed was a firearm on his right hip. Police later found a handgun inside Jasmer's coat, but the pocket was zipped. A zipped pocket is not a hip holster. A gun inside a zipped coat is not an accessible weapon. It is an object, cotton and metal separated by a zipper that would have taken a deliberate act, in plain view, with both hands, to open. There is no footage showing Jasmer reaching for anything. There is only an officer's account of what he believed he saw. And in a legal system that had no camera to consult, no audio to analyze, no independent verification of any kind, that belief, unconfirmed, untested, and entirely self-reported, was accepted as sufficient. A zipped pocket became a drawn weapon. A boy walking home became a threat that required lethal force. A grand jury accepted it. Jasmer Tucker is simultaneously a threat that required lethal force and a 15-year-old walking to his brother's house on Thanksgiving. He is simultaneously reaching for a weapon and in possession of a weapon that is zipped into his coat. He is simultaneously guilty of something and the subject of no footage that shows what that something was. The only account of what happened in those final seconds belongs to the officer who pulled the trigger. In any other context, we would call that a conflict of interest. In this context, it was the only evidence a grand jury needed. This is what it looks like when the justice system is asked to answer a question it was never designed to ask. Not whether the shooting was justified, but whether a 15-year-old boy deserved to survive his walk home. Are we prepared to change what running means in this country before the next teenager is shot for doing it? Subscribe, share, and leave a comment, because the families of Emeshion, Kanoa, and Jasmer are still waiting for the kind of attention that only visibility can create.